April 14, 1912. The North Atlantic was unusually calm. There were no crashing waves, no violent winds, and no sign that anything was wrong. The sea looked almost like polished glass, reflecting thousands of stars across the darkness. More than 2,200 people were aboard the largest passenger ship ever built. Some were asleep after an evening of luxury. Others laughed in elegant dining rooms, enjoying expensive meals served on fine china. Deep below the decks, hundreds of immigrants dreamed about the new lives waiting for them in America. None of them knew they had less than 3 hours left. By sunrise, the greatest ship on Earth would be gone. This is the true story of the RMS Titanic. Not just how she sank, but why the disaster happened, who fought to survive, and how one single night changed maritime history forever. At the beginning of the 20th century, the world believed it had entered a new age. Technology was advancing faster than ever before. Cities were growing. Factories filled the skies with smoke, and engineers believed there was almost no challenge that human intelligence could not overcome. Ships were becoming larger, stronger, and more luxurious every year. Crossing the Atlantic, which had once been a dangerous journey lasting weeks, was becoming safer and faster. Competition between shipping companies was fierce. The British company White Star Line wanted to build something the world had never seen. Not necessarily the fastest ship, but the most luxurious and impressive passenger liner ever created. To make that dream a reality, construction began in Belfast, Ireland, at the Holland and Wolff shipyard. More than 15,000 workers spent over 2 years building what would become one of history's most famous ships. The Titanic measured nearly 269 meters, or 882 feet in length. She stood over 53 meters tall from the keel to the top of her funnels. She weighed more than 46,000 tons. Her engines produced enough power to move an entire floating city across the Atlantic Ocean. At the time, nothing else on Earth came close. The Titanic contained electric elevators, luxurious suites, a Turkish bath, a swimming pool, squash courts, libraries, smoking lounges, elegant restaurants, and one of the grandest staircases ever installed aboard a ship. To wealthy passengers, traveling aboard the Titanic felt more like staying in a 5-star hotel than crossing an ocean. Even third-class accommodations were considered better than first-class cabins on many other ships. The ship represented confidence, modern engineering, human ambition. Many newspapers described her as practically unsinkable. Although the White Star Line never officially claimed that the Titanic could never sink, the belief spread quickly around the world. People trusted steel more than nature. History would soon prove how dangerous that confidence could become. On April 10, 1912, thousands gathered at Southampton Harbor in England. Families waved goodbye. Workers rushed across the docks carrying luggage. Reporters filled newspapers with stories about the magnificent new liner beginning her maiden voyage. The atmosphere was filled with excitement. Among the passengers were some of the richest people alive. Millionaire businessman John Jacob Astor Thufov traveled with his young wife Madeline. Benjamin Guggenheim, one of America's wealthiest industrialists, also boarded the ship. Isidore and Ida Strauss, owners of the famous Macy's department store, were returning home after spending the winter in Europe. But not everyone aboard was wealthy. Hundreds of families had sold nearly everything they owned just to buy third-class tickets. For them, America represented hope, better jobs, a safer future, a chance to escape poverty forever. Each passenger stepped aboard carrying different dreams. None imagined they were also boarding history's most famous disaster. The first days at sea were peaceful. The engines worked perfectly. The weather remained calm. Children explored the enormous decks while wealthy passengers enjoyed fine dining beneath sparkling chandeliers. Every evening, orchestras performed elegant music. Stewards polished silverware until it reflected the light. Chefs prepared thousands of meals every single day. Far below, engineers worked around the clock, feeding enormous boilers with coal. More than 600 firemen, trimmers, and engineers labored in unbearable heat to keep the giant ship moving forward. Most passengers never saw them. Yet without those men below deck, the Titanic would never have moved an inch. Captain Edward Smith, one of Britain's most experienced sea captains, commanded the voyage. After decades at sea, this was expected to be his final journey before retirement. Many trusted him completely. He had spent years safely crossing the Atlantic. There seemed to be no reason to worry. As the Titanic continued westward, wireless operators received several messages from nearby ships. The warnings all carried the same information: ice, large ice fields, floating icebergs directly ahead of the Titanic's planned route. Some warnings reached the bridge, others never did. At the same time, passengers continued dancing, reading, laughing, and sleeping, unaware that dozens of massive icebergs drifted silently through the freezing waters ahead. Nature had already laid its trap, and with every mile the Titanic traveled, the distance between the ship and disaster grew smaller. The ocean remained calm, almost too calm. Without waves breaking against the base of an iceberg, spotting one at night became incredibly difficult. It was a danger very few people on board fully understood. The most dangerous moment of the voyage was approaching. Yet inside the Titanic, almost everyone believed they were aboard the safest ship ever built. They couldn't have been more wrong. By the evening of April 14, 1912, the Titanic had traveled more than halfway across the Atlantic. The air grew colder with every passing hour. Passengers wrapped themselves in coats as they walked the open decks, admiring a sky so clear that the stars seemed close enough to touch. Inside the ship, however, nothing felt unusual. The first-class dining room buzzed with conversation. Crystal glasses clinked together as wealthy travelers enjoyed one of the finest dinners ever served at sea. In the smoking room, businessmen discussed politics and finance. Children had already gone to bed dreaming of New York. It seemed like an ordinary night, but nearly 600 kilometers away, other ships had already encountered dangerous ice. Throughout the day, wireless operators aboard the Titanic received message after message warning of drifting icebergs directly along their route. One warning came from the Caronia, another from the Baltic. Then came reports from the America, the Californian, and several other ships. Each message painted the same picture. The North Atlantic was filled with floating ice. Some of those warnings reached Captain Edward Smith and his officers. Others were delayed or set aside as the wireless. Operators became overwhelmed, sending personal telegrams from wealthy passengers to shore. Passenger messages took priority, creating a growing backlog that kept the radio room busy for hours. The Titanic continued forward at nearly 22 knots, close to her maximum operating speed. No one wanted to slow the voyage. There was confidence that the crew would spot any iceberg in time. That confidence would prove fatal. High above the deck, inside the crow's nest, two lookouts, Frederick Fleet and Reginald Lee, scanned the endless darkness. The cold was unbearable. The temperature had dropped below freezing. To make matters worse, the lookouts had no binoculars. The key to the locker containing them had accidentally been left behind before the ship departed Southampton. Instead, they relied only on their eyesight. Hour after hour, nothing, just darkness. Then, at 11:40 p.m., Frederick Fleet suddenly noticed something directly ahead. A dark shape. It wasn't easy to see. The sea was perfectly calm, meaning there were no waves crashing against the iceberg to reveal its outline. Only a black wall rising from an even blacker ocean. Fleet reacted instantly. He struck the warning bell 3 times, then grabbed the telephone. "Iceberg right ahead." Those 3 words echoed through the bridge. First Officer William Murdoch responded immediately. "Hard a starboard!" At the same time, he ordered the engine room to reverse the engines. The massive ship began turning, slowly, painfully slowly. The Titanic weighed more than 46,000 tons. She could not change direction like a small boat. Every second mattered. For a brief moment, it looked as though they might miss it. But the iceberg scraped along the ship's starboard side. The impact was surprisingly gentle. Many passengers barely felt anything. Some thought the ship had simply vibrated. Others continued reading or talking without even looking up. There was no dramatic explosion. No massive hole torn through the hull. Instead, something much worse had happened. The iceberg crushed and bent the steel plates beneath the waterline, forcing the seams apart. Small openings appeared across several compartments. Individually, each opening seemed minor. Together, they allowed thousands of tons of icy seawater to pour into the ship. Within minutes, the forward compartments began flooding. Deep below deck, engineers heard the terrifying roar of water rushing through the hull. Some men had only seconds to escape before the freezing ocean swallowed their workspaces. Shipbuilder Thomas Andrews, the man who had designed the Titanic, quickly inspected the damage alongside Captain Smith. What he discovered left no room for hope. The Titanic had been built with 16 watertight compartments, a revolutionary safety feature for its time. The ship was designed to remain afloat if up to 4 of those compartments flooded, but the iceberg had damaged at least 5. That meant the bow would continue sinking lower. As it dipped, water would spill over the tops of the compartments into the next ones, like water overflowing from one glass into another. It was only a matter of time. After completing his inspection, Andrews delivered the words no captain ever wanted to hear. "The ship will sink." Captain Smith stood in silence. One of the greatest engineering achievements in history had just received a death sentence. There was nothing anyone could do to save it. Only the people aboard. The order was finally given. "Prepare the lifeboats." Crew members began waking sleeping passengers. Many refused to believe there was any danger. Some laughed. Others were annoyed at being disturbed in the middle of the night. The ship looked perfectly normal. Its lights still burned brightly. The orchestra continued playing. Why would anyone leave the warmth of the Titanic to climb into a small wooden boat on a freezing ocean? That hesitation would cost many lives. Even more tragic was another fact. Although more than 2,200 people were on board, the Titanic carried lifeboats for only about 1,178. Not because there wasn't enough room. There was. Maritime regulations at the time were badly outdated, and ship designers believed too many lifeboats would clutter the luxurious promenade decks. No one imagined the unsinkable ship would ever need them all. They were disastrously wrong, as the first lifeboats were lowered into the freezing Atlantic. Most of them left only half full. The race against time had begun, and the ocean was rising, one compartment at a time. 12:15 a.m. Less than 40 minutes had passed since the collision. The bow of the Titanic had already begun to sink noticeably into the freezing Atlantic. Water was pouring through the damaged compartments faster than the pumps could remove it. Every minute, the ship grew heavier. Above deck, the crew struggled to maintain order. "Ladies and children first!" The command echoed across the decks, but confusion spread quickly. Many passengers still refused to board the lifeboats. From where they stood, the Titanic looked perfectly safe. Its lights were still shining. The engines still hummed beneath the decks, and there was no sense of panic. To many, climbing into a small, wooden boat hanging over the black ocean seemed far more dangerous than staying aboard the world's largest ship. As a result, the first lifeboats left, carrying only half the number of people they could hold. Those empty seats would soon become one of the greatest tragedies of the disaster. Deep below the decks, hundreds of engineers, firemen, and electricians made a decision that few passengers would ever know about. They stayed. They knew the ship was doomed. Yet, they remained at their stations, shoveling coal into the boilers and keeping the generators running. Their work kept the lights on. It kept the wireless radio operating. It kept power flowing to the pumps and allowed thousands of passengers to find their way across the enormous ship. Those men understood that every extra minute of electricity could mean another lifeboat launched. Almost none of them survived. In the wireless room, operators Jack Phillips and Harold Bride worked without stopping. Again and again, Phillips tapped out the same desperate message. CQD, CQD, CQD. Soon, he added the newer distress signal that had only recently been introduced. SOS, SOS, SOS. Ships across the Atlantic heard the call. Some were too far away. Some were trapped behind fields of ice. One ship, the RMS Carpathia, immediately changed course and raced toward the Titanic at full speed. But it was nearly 4 hours away. The Titanic didn't have 4 hours. As the bow continued sinking, the angle of the deck became impossible to ignore. Passengers who had ignored the warnings now rushed toward the lifeboats, but many boats had already disappeared into the darkness. Panic replaced disbelief. Families became separated in the growing crowds. Children cried for their parents. Husbands kissed their wives goodbye, knowing they might never meet again. Among them were Isidore and Ida Strauss. Crew members urged Ida to board a lifeboat. She refused. She reportedly said she would not leave her husband after spending a lifetime together. The elderly couple remained on the deck, side by side. Neither survived. Another wealthy passenger, Benjamin Guggenheim, changed into his finest evening clothes. He reportedly told those nearby, "We've dressed in our best and are prepared to go down like gentlemen." Whether every word was recorded exactly or not, many witnesses remembered his remarkable calm in the face of death. One story that has become legendary is that of the ship's musicians. Led by Wallace Hartley, the band continued performing while passengers boarded the lifeboats. Their music helped calm frightened crowds and prevented total chaos. No one knows with complete certainty what the final song was. Some survivors believed it was "Nearer, My God, to Thee." Others remembered different melodies. What is certain is this: the musicians kept playing until they could play no longer. None of them survived. By 2 a.m., only a handful of lifeboats remained. The front of the ship was now deep beneath the water. People scrambled toward the stern as the freezing Atlantic swallowed deck after deck. The angle became steeper every minute. Furniture slid across polished floors. Chimneys groaned under enormous stress. The sounds were unforgettable. Exploding rivets, twisting steel, breaking glass, the screams of thousands of frightened people. Then came the moment no one expected. The enormous ship began to break apart. For decades, many believed the Titanic had sunk in one piece. When the wreck was discovered in 1985, it confirmed what many survivors had claimed all along. The ship had split into two. The bow disappeared first. Moments later, the stern briefly rose almost vertically into the night sky. For a few terrifying seconds, hundreds of people clung to the deck, desperately trying to hold on. Then gravity won. At 2:20 a.m., the stern slipped beneath the Atlantic. The Titanic was gone. Followed was even more horrifying. More than 1,500 people were suddenly thrown into water measuring around. The shock stole their breath instantly. Many were unable to swim. Others died within minutes from hypothermia. Survivors in the lifeboats later described hearing hundreds of voices crying for help across the darkness. Then, one by one, the voices disappeared. Silence returned to the Atlantic. The ocean that had seemed so calm just hours earlier had claimed one of the greatest ships ever, built, and more than 1,500 lives. At 4 a.m., nearly 2 hours after the Titanic disappeared beneath the Atlantic, lights finally appeared on the horizon. It was the RMS Carpathia. Captain Arthur Rostron had pushed his ship far beyond its normal operating speed after receiving the Titanic's distress calls. To save time, he ordered unnecessary electrical systems turned off, redirected every available crew member to emergency duty, and prepared blankets, food, hot drinks, and medical supplies before arriving. But when the Carpathia reached the coordinates, the Titanic was gone. Only lifeboats remained, drifting across the freezing ocean. As the first survivors were pulled aboard, many were in shock. Some were too cold to speak. Others stared silently at the empty sea where, only hours earlier, the largest ship in the world had stood. Again and again, survivors asked the same heartbreaking question. Have you seen my husband? Have you found my wife? Where are my children? For most of them, no answer would ever come. By the time the rescue was complete, approximately 705 people had survived. More than 2,500 had lost their lives. It remains one of the deadliest peacetime maritime disasters in history. News of the tragedy spread across the world with astonishing speed. Newspapers printed enormous headlines. Crowds gathered outside the offices of the White Star Line, desperate for information. In New York, hundreds of families waited at the docks, hoping to see loved ones step off the rescue ship. Some embraced each other in tears. Others stood in silence as lists of the missing grew longer. The disaster shocked the world because people had believed modern technology had conquered nature. The Titanic proved otherwise. No matter how advanced human engineering became, the sea still demanded respect. In the weeks that followed, Official investigations began in both the United States and Britain. Investigators questioned survivors, officers, engineers, and company officials. They searched for one answer. How could this happen? The investigations revealed a series of critical mistakes. The Titanic had received multiple icebergs, warnings, but maintained a high speed. Through dangerous waters, she carried far too few lifeboats for everyone on board. Several lifeboats were launched only partially filled. Communication between nearby ships failed at crucial moments. The SS Californian, believed to have been much closer than the Carpathia, never came to the rescue in time. Its wireless operator had gone to bed before the Titanic sent its final distress calls. None of these mistakes alone doomed the ship, but together, they created the perfect disaster. The sinking of the Titanic changed maritime safety forever. New international regulations required ships to carry enough lifeboats for every person on board. Continuous 24-hour wireless radio watches became mandatory. Ice patrols were established to monitor dangerous ice fields in the North Atlantic, helping ships avoid the same fate. Many of the safety rules followed by modern passenger ships exist because of the lessons learned that night. The Titanic's legacy was written in tragedy, but it helped save countless lives in the years that followed. For decades, the Titanic rested undisturbed beneath nearly 3,800 meters of water. Many believed the wreck would never be found. Then, in 1985, an expedition led by oceanographer Robert Ballard finally located it. The discovery confirmed what many survivors had described decades earlier. The ship had broken into two large sections before reaching the ocean floor. Images of the rust-covered bow stunned the world. The grand staircase had vanished. Luxury cabins had collapsed. Personal belongings, shoes, dishes, bottles, suitcases, and children's toys lay scattered across the seabed, frozen in time. They were silent reminders that the wreck was not just a historical site. It was also the final resting place of more than 1,500 people. More than a century has passed since the Titanic's maiden voyage. Books have been written. Movies have been made. Scientists continue to study the wreck, while historians uncover new details from diaries, photographs, and survivor testimonies. Yet the story of the Titanic continues to fascinate people for one simple reason. It is not merely the story of a ship. It is a story of ambition, confidence, courage, sacrifice, and the consequences of believing that human achievement could never be defeated. On the night of April 14, 1912, the ocean reminded the world that nature always has the final word. The Titanic was called the Unsinkable ship. She sailed for only 5 days, but her story has survived for more than a century. And as long as people remember the lives that were lost and the lessons that were learned, the Titanic will never truly disappear beneath the waves.